And good evening and welcome to another edition of the Big High School Sports Show on 98.9 WXCO, online at WXCO.FM, mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO, and on the Civic Media app, and also on YouTube. Go to youtube.com, go to the 98.9 WXCO channel, and you'll be able to watch the stream free. Though I guess we can be charging apparently for what we're talking about. That's a whole different story. Not going to go down that road. I am Chad Holmes. He is Jason Foster, former head football coach of Wausau West. And what is this, week 11 of the show? We're getting towards the end of the line here before we transition into the winter, but we're in the midst of the playoffs. And before we talk about all the recaps, what stood out last week? Because it was level one, and I think we get a sense of – I'm going to start, and then you add it. I think what we learned is that the Central Wisconsin Conference large is a very good football conference, because I was kicking myself because I'm in a little pool where we pick all the games, and I did not trust myself on a couple of these games that the teams went on the road and won. That's the first thing that kind of stood out to me, that the CWC large outstanding, and there's a lot of teams still playing this week.
Yeah, they had a great week. I mean, those were probably some of the funnest ones, or the most fun to watch and kind of see those results and how those teams stacked up. Definitely some surprises in there too, as you looked at them, right? Like, obviously you kind of pick those games and not knowing a lot of the opponents, right? You just assume the higher seed and teams you don't know much about, probably quality teams. And I think like you said, I think that conference definitely proved that the top of that conference continues to be very strong, and a lot of them playing in level 2.
And any one other point that maybe was jumped out? That was my jump out. Did anything jump out to you? And I think we'll talk a little bit more as we go, but I thought at the top, maybe something that kind of popped you on the noggin there in level 1.
I think the thing that I don't know if it popped me on the head, but I spent quite a bit of time after the show last week kind of looking at the brackets and really focusing in on those scores that the computer generated based on your wins, your losses, and where you stacked up. We talked last week about how D1 seemed to be a struggle, and I looked at some of those things and some of those matchups, and how many of those games in those lower divisions were just complete blowouts. When we talk about teams, I certainly don't sit here a week later and have any solutions to it, but I will be very interested to see moving forward if there is some initial adjustments from year 1 to year 2, because there is some definite discrepancies in the division that you're on. Obviously, I'd look at Wausau West, right? Their score was like a 9.99 something or whatever, which put them at 32 out of 30 or 30 out of 32 teams in Division 1. That same set score would have put them in as a 7 seed in Division 2, but then as a 4, 5, or 6 seed in all the rest of the divisions. Whatever. I think.
And theoretically, those numbers should not change based on divisions. It's not going to be where Division 1 automatically has higher numbers. Theoretically, you get points for playing teams that are either bigger or smaller than you are, and correct?
Yeah.
Am I right on that?
Yep, and who you beat, and if the teams you beat have better records. And I think one of the things that kind of hurt the Wisconsin Valley Conference this year is the teams at the bottom and the teams at the middle. First off, nobody was really dominant. Nobody had a great year. They kind of got beat up a little bit by the teams on the other side of our conference in those crossover games. And the teams at the bottom had very few wins. So when you got those wins, you didn't get a lot of credit for it. Certainly not a sour grape situation, but just kind of interesting as you try to figure it out. It seems like the biggest thing that stuck out to me early on was, in previous years, one of the biggest complaints was there seemed to be a lot of benefit given to previous year's success. Like if you had playoff runs when it came to seeding, and that was always a head scratcher. That certainly does not seem to be the case any longer. So an interesting fix, but certainly some new questions as well.
Let's talk about our area teams in level 1, starting with Division 1 and the game that I had right here on 98.9 WXCO last Friday night. Arrowhead, the number 1 seed, moves to 9-1, defeating the number 8 seed Wausau West 56-12. Warriors finish at 5-5. Quarterback Nolan Hansen, 8 of 8, 115 yards, 3 touchdowns for the Warhawks. Devin Nettles, running back, 8 carries, 91 yards. Ryan Hyman, 2 catches, 28 yards, but both were for touchdowns for Arrowhead. Cooper DePoit had 17 carries, 60 yards. Joe Gravine, 8 for 13, 72 yards, a couple of touchdowns and a pick for the Warriors. And Shea Jones, 4 catches, 29 yards, a touchdown, which was his 10th touchdown of the season, which was a nice milestone that I was happy to see in the second half. In that game, so quickly, and you know this, that when you go on the road as an underdog, you kind of have to, they had fireworks and everybody's excited. You kind of have to get through the first 6-7 minutes. And unfortunately, in the first 6-7 minutes, West is down 20-0.
Yeah, I mean, that's tough to overcome. And it's those mistakes, those unforced errors that you think that you spend all the time doing the right things in practice and game planning to try to overcome those. I think when you reflect back on the Wausau season overall, those are things that got them kind of week in and week out, both in the games that they won and some for certain in the games that they lost. Kind of the big penalties, the turnovers, the untimely turnovers. Like think back to the Marshfield game and how the last 4 minutes of the first half and the first 4 minutes of the second half turned that game so much. And in this game, it was kind of the first 4 minutes of this game that kind of really. I mean, it was going to be a steep road no matter
and
what.
Even the last 3 minutes, because they had a good 80-yard drive, and then it's 27-6, and you get the football at the start. I was saying this on the air. You get the football at the start of the third quarter. If you get a stop, maybe you get a chance to make it a 2-score game, and then maybe again, when you're looking at it, you know it's not easy to do, but you have that roadmap. But instead, Arrowhead, which they did all night long, was able to move the football, score, and then the Warriors actually got a couple of first downs, but then had to punt it, and got blocked for a return touchdown, and all of a sudden it's a running clock. I mean, that's how quickly these good teams can take advantage, right?
Yeah, and as a coach, as you get to those last 4 minutes of the first half, you're, in addition to finishing out the first half strong, whether you're on offense, defense, special teams, whatever the case is, you do start thinking about, what am I going to say at halftime? Like, what is the message? Is it one side of the ball, both sides of the ball, all sides of the ball? Are we getting the ball to start the second? So what is the message? What do we have to fix? Where are we going? And in a blink of an eye, it's completely different. Like you said, it goes from being down 3 scores and probably not coming out with a ton of optimism because you're playing a really tough team on the road. But all of a sudden, you're, like you said, running clock, and now you start talking about other things. Like we have to possess the football. We're focusing on first downs. We're focusing on finishing drives. We're focusing on getting off the field. So kind of those moral victories as opposed to what is the actual game plan for getting back into this thing.
So Arrowhead next will take on Brookfield East, and Brookfield East held off DC Everest 19-13. Brookfield East is now 8-2 on the season, while the Evergreens finish off their campaign at 6-4. DC Everest could not run the football. They just had 35 yards rushing as a team. Ty Rhodey was 10 of 22, 199 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pair of interceptions. Xavier Edwards, we talked about it. He needed to be a big factor, and he had the big play. He had a 74-yard touchdown reception, but late in the game. But he had 2 catches, 82 yards overall. Nathaniel Briggs had a nice night defensively, 10 tackles, 2 tackles for losses for the Evergreens. Brookfield East was able to run the football. Max Matter, 21 carries, 137 yards in the score. Middling numbers for their quarterback, Zeke Sayewall, 13 of 26, 161 yards and 2 touchdowns. Jack Murray, 5 catches, 91 yards as well for Brookfield East. Everest was behind, and they actually had an opportunity late in that football game.
Yeah, I think this is one of those, when you talk, going back a little bit to what we talked about earlier and how the playoffs work now, right? I think in this matchup, when you win that 1 or 2 extra games during the regular season, your score puts you at a different seed. You really get matched up against somebody that's going to be a competitive game, and I think that's what happened here between Everest and Brookfield East. I think ultimately we talked a lot last year about how strong DC Everest was, in particular offensively, how good their running game was, how good their passing game was. I think this is a pretty good example of who the Evergreens were this year. I mean, they had a lot of success running the ball earlier, but it was not the Bankston, you know what I mean? It was not the running machine that they had last year. It wasn't the effective passing game. And obviously, right, we talked about it a lot. Young quarterback, probably has a super bright future
right.
In this league. Came in an incredible athlete, but he was not what they had last year.
At whatever level, it's hard to win with a backup quarterback. Inexperienced, a sophomore in Division I especially. That's a special challenge.
Yeah,
right
Brookfield East is a heck of a team. Obviously, they played outstanding defense. You hold a team like DC Everest, the conference champion, undefeated in conference champion to 35 yards rushing. That's a heck of a defense. At the end of the day, that's what Everest is. I mean, they're a conference championship. They got a lot to look back on and be proud of. The back-to-back conference championships. But, yeah, this is a tough one. And it'll be interesting to see what this matchup is between Arrowhead and Brookfield East. Obviously, Brookfield East will certainly look to slow them down quite a bit more. I mean, it looks like they play solid defense, but I think Arrowhead's a pretty big pretty big challenge for anybody in their path at this point.
Real quickly, I was just looking at this Division I bracket. Number 1, if you were a number 8 seed, you wanted to go to Waunakee because the other 3 number 1s really were dominant. In fact, when you look at the scores throughout, a lot of one-sided games. Yeah. But Chippewa Falls took Waunakee to overtime, and it's not surprising that was the one game perhaps an 8 could go in there and challenge a 1.
Yeah, honestly, it's reminiscent of last year, right? When all the teams from the Valley kind of faced off against those, as well as Chippewa and Hudson at that time, and kind of had those really nice first-round matchups. And I think this was you hit it on the head. I think this is the one. And you look at how good Waunakee is, and kind of as a Division II team, and all the success they've had, and they bump up. They've been a number 1 seed the last 2 years, and have had really challenging level 1 games the last 2 years.
And I think Hudson feels the same. This year they got to go south, and they got a first-round a win after losing the football game, and De Pere lost their starting quarterback, so it obviously hurt them both in week number 9, and then to lose in overtime.
Nina.
Nina lost
to De Pere beat them.
Yeah, exactly. Nina was playing with their backup quarterback. De Pere came in there, and Fox Valley kind of game, and won in overtime.
Yeah, I mean it was a great matchup for De Pere, right? Playing a Nina without their quarterback. I mean, ultimately Nina was a heck of a football team this year. So yeah, definitely a challenge for them, and probably the next team who plays De Pere is probably pretty excited because they're getting a matchup they weren't anticipating as opposed to playing a really good Nina team.
And I guess the final point I'll make is on the other side of the Division I bracket, the closest game was 28 points. I mean, there were just blowout after blowout after blowout on the other side.
Yeah, I think when you look at kind of whatever it is, the haves, the have-nots, for whatever our bubble in this part of the state was the Fox Valley Association, right? Like the Kimberleys and the Fond du Lacs, Nina, all really, really good programs. One team usually came out of that bracket or that conference into the state championship, D1, D2, maybe both. But you look at this Heartland Arrowhead and their conference, and Muskego beat them pretty handily. Coach Nowinski used to coach with a good friend of his, is the superintendent at Sussex Hamilton, who's traditionally a really nice program too. He has a son who plays on the team, and Josh was talking to him last week, and he said when you play Arrowhead, it's like playing a track team with football helmet and shoulder pads. So I think that's what it is, and I think that conference is pretty incredible when you look at all the teams that stack up. You win that conference, and you've had pretty good accomplishment right off the bat.
Division II had one area team involved, Marshfield, and the Marshfield Tigers fell at Oshkosh North 28-7. Oshkosh North 9-1. Marshfield finishes 5-5. Josh Taylor, a 3-yard touchdown catch from Trevin Frice, tied the game at 7 midway through the second. But then late in the quarter, a 90-yard touchdown drive ended with a score with under a minute left in the first half, gave Oshkosh North the lead for good. And I think the big number was Hayden Carlson. We've seen such huge numbers recently. And 1 yard per carry, 13 carries, 13 yards. Marshfield QBs were okay, but again, not enough to overcome that. 13 of 23, 144 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. And like we talked earlier in the Brookfield East game against Everest, Oshkosh North was able to run the football while Marshfield wasn't. Jamon Thompson-Schreck, 23 carries, 152 yards, and 2 touchdowns for Oshkosh North. Well, when I was getting ready, those two games kind of had a similar feel to them.
Right, and we talk about success in the playoffs, right? Everyone talks all the time about playoffs or about offense and passing the football and spread offense, all that. What wins in the playoffs? Running the football and really good defense. And obviously the best teams are going to be able to throw the ball too. But even if you look at Arrowhead, did they throw the ball? Yeah, 8 times. You know what I mean? Very successfully 8 times and 3 touchdowns. But at the end of the day, they won by running the football.
The thing was, though, I think they could have thrown
for
it.
Sure.
They were very impressive throwing the football.
Like a River Falls team the week before. Yeah. Very, very successful throwing the football.
Division III, Wausau East lost to Mount Horeb Barnaville 31-7. Real quickly, I forgot to mention who our guests are going to be tonight. We're going to recap the East season with Tyler Kramer, their head coach. And our student-athlete guests, we're going a little outside the box as we're getting towards sectionals in volleyball. And one of the top performers here in Central Wisconsin from Newman Catholic, senior Camille Soboleski. She is 3rd in the state in kills. And we'll talk to her coming up in the second hour. But Mount Horeb, Barnaville 31, Wausau East 7. Ian Stahl, 20 carries, 85 yards. East had 162 yards rushing as a team, but only 4 of 16 passing on the night for 30 yards. Peyton Ness, 13 tackles and a sack for East. Mount Horeb Barneveld, Brooks Hendrickson, 10 of 18, 115 yards, 3 touchdowns. Jack Wilson, 15 rushes, 108 yards. Eli Meyer, 11 rushes, 102 yards, and a touchdown for a very good Mount Horeb Barneveld team. But I'm going to throw it out there. We talk about all these teams from Central Wisconsin. None of them are able to run it in the first round of the playoffs. East was another one. But they ran it okay. We'll say that. They couldn't throw the football more than anything else, but it just seems like, boy, I mean, going outside the area has been pretty tough for our Central Wisconsin teams up to this point in our recap.
Yeah, and I think the other recap when we did it last week and talked about those conference seasons, I think East comes out of another conference that wasn't very strong, right? And so those wins and that success, very similar can be said for the Valley this year. Not a very strong season for the Wisconsin Valley Conference. So a lot of those successes we saw when those teams were playing each other kind of evaporated when they got against some better talent. And one of the big things that you hit it on the head is the strong defenses that you see from some of these other really solid programs. And Mount Horeb is exactly that, a really solid program.
And I will say that for the Lumberjacks, he installed a terrific season. He was a very tough player. And again, Peyton Ness was leader of a defense, had a number of players. Those were the strengths of the team. It looked like the strengths of the team did come to play in that road game down at Mount Horeb last week.
Yeah, I know one of the other strengths that East has had in their ability to run the ball, and it looks like they had it again that night, is their offensive line. They had a couple really key players in there, and I think that definitely probably was a strength to them. Interested to talk to Coach Kramer a little bit more about that later.
Merrill beats Lakeland. So the one GNC team that won beat a GNC team. The Merrill Blue Jays now 7-3, eliminate Lakeland 38-12. Lakeland finishes 5-5. Cole Rudai 8 of 10, 107 yards, a touchdown, 11 rushes, 159 yards, and a score. Noah Klug 12 tackles for Merrill, and they took charge early, 31-6 at halftime. And again, Lakeland was a banged up team, but at the same time, Merrill came out there and did the job. And I know that we talked with the student athlete guest last week. Playing a home game for Merrill was big, and they looked like they were ready to go.
Yeah, it's awesome. We talk about checking boxes. You want to finish strong in the conference. You want to A, make the playoffs, B, get a home game, and C, if you get a home game, win it. And Merrill's able to check all those boxes. Great first round for them. Another step forward in their program.
And next up will be a big step forward. Not an easy one against an undefeated number 1 seed, Grafton. Grafton 10-0, beating Medford 49-14. Medford finishes 3-7. Grafton came out, took charge 21-0 after 35-6 at halftime. Nicholas Schiller 9 of 16, 176 yards, 3 touchdowns. Tyler Deere 6 catches, 132 yards, and 2 scores. Jack Nelson 12 rushes, 84 yards, and 3 touchdowns for Grafton. For Medford, it was a struggle. They lost incredible talent from a great run. And from everything I've heard, it's just a little hiccup. A lot of these younger players getting some experience. What one would expect Medford to be back where they're used to being coming up in the next year or two.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they're a well-coached team. They have great tradition, so you assume their numbers are good at the lower levels. They have a really strong weight program, so a little more experience. These guys are going to be a lot better, and they'll get back, right? Their style of play, like when they played East, they go for it on 4th down. They don't punt it. They go for 2 when they score touchdowns. When they were unable to do that in games this year, these are the types of things that happened. A little bit of a little asterisk to this one too is even when Medford has been really strong, they have not seen a lot of postseason success. So this matchup certainly kind of lended to that in a year where they were down a little bit.
Rhinelander falls to Edgewood 35-7, also in Division III. Edgewood 9-1, Rhinelander 3-7. Abe Gretzinger 14 of 22, 128 yards and a touchdown for Rhinelander. Rowan Wiechek had 9 catches, 90 yards, and 15 tackles as well for the Hodags. Gannon Bagstad 8 of 10, 77 yards, a couple of scores for Edgewood. 20 rushes, 151 yards, and 2 touchdowns as well for the Edgewood QB. And I think Medford and Rhinelander are a couple, and you, I think, kind of touched the fringes of the conversation. Yep. That the way this playoff landed this year, and again, when you have all the divisions already set before the season starts, there's a possibility you're going to have maybe more good teams in Division I or Division II, or some years Division VI, Division VII. But for whatever reason, Division III, the bottom was not very strong.
Correct. Yep. And you look at all those teams that made it. I go back to, we're talking D3 here, but you go back to who makes it, who doesn't make it. You look at some of these 3-7 teams who made it in here and got kind of what you would expect it. And then you go back up to D1 and you look at a team like Spash. And Spash wasn't great this year, so I'm not saying that at all, but that's probably where the question marks and the red flags come up as you look at tweaking whatever this formula is for this. Is a Spash team that probably had the chance to be somewhat competitive, but would have been a 1-8 matchup as well, and probably would have suffered a similar fate to most of the other 8 seeds. But in that division,
yeah.
But, I mean, what was just a couple balls bouncing the other way, the difference between almost being a conference champion to not being in the playoffs was a pretty slim margin.
Well, and the whole thing is, it's the difference between 32 times 7. You have all, and then otherwise, what's it, 224, if I'm not mistaken, the top 224. I mean, it's like, obviously, there's some changes involved in that, and whether or not one is better than the other, maybe there'll be some conversations. I don't know. Maybe you think about going back to, you'd say, hey, okay, the top 224 teams, and then we'll again just put them off in 7 divisions.
Take those scores, right?
So, I mean, I'm sure that's a part of the recap that will occur after the season's all completed. Division 4, another GNC team. I said only one. Yeah. I was mistaken, terribly mistaken, horribly mistaken, because I wasn't off by 1. I was off by 2. But Division 4, Mosinee beat Turner 41. It was one team in D3, so I guess I'll cover myself in fake glory there. But Mosinee 41, Turner 7. Mosinee now 8-2. Turner finishes 4-6. Treve Stoffel again 13-17, 276 yards, 4 touchdowns. Carter Fondre 11 rushes, 69 yards, and a couple of scores. Mitchell Mickleg 3 catches, 111 yards, and 2 touchdowns for Mosinee. So. Again, we've talked about this in the past. There's been no guarantees for GNC champs in the playoffs. Sometimes, and even Mosinee's lost a couple of home games in recent years. So that's a really good start for the postseason for Mosinee.
Yeah, I think the other thing that you'd asked right at the top of the show, what kind of stuck out from week 1. I think some of the matchups. Forget about the seeding or the scores and all that stuff. Like the geographical matchups, right? I know the answer, never. When do teams like Mosinee play a team like Turner? When does a team like DC Evers play a team like Brookfield? So definitely the geography is the one thing that kind of flew out the window in this new system. So, and I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing.
I don't think it's a bad thing.
When you talk about football, you're talking about a Friday night. Yeah. You're talking about a trip. You know what I mean? One trip, and so I think we talked last year how we really liked kind of going down to Waunakee and playing those other schools from that conference. I think this probably feeds into that as well. So a nice matchup for Mosinee, a nice win for them, and very excited for them to hit Division 2.
Division 5.
Or Level 2, I should say.
Division 5, the other GNC champ, Tomahawk, defeated Omro 41-14. 9-1 for the Hatchets. Omro 3-7. Jet Riley 4-5, 79 yards, 2 scores, 13 rushes, 80 yards. Jonah Dickens, 3 catches, 63 yards, and 2 touchdowns for Tomahawk. Defense held Omro to 35 yards rushing on 19 carries. So the dream season continues for Tomahawk.
Yeah, great defense and strong rushing, right? That's the recipe. And, I mean, Tomahawk's done a lot of other things, I think, that puts them in a good position. They're mentally tough. They have kids who've won championships in other sports. Very similar coaching in both, as it's the same head coach. So yeah, I mean, we're going to talk about it next year, but I mean, this is the matchup that I'm kind of looking forward to in the next level. Well, level 3.
Let's jump to their next opponent, Spencer Columbus, who beat New Holstein on the road 31-12. Jack Haper, 36 rushes, 242 yards and 3 scores. Devin Timler, 12-17, 130 yards and a touchdown. Matt Konishny, 8 catches, 58 yards for Spencer Columbus. And again, I've been kind of watching this team all season long, and boy, they have just been consistently good. Even in the games they've lost, they have not been blown out of the water, and they're playing some great football, and that's a great win. And I got to say, you're right. I think Spencer Columbus and Tomahawk are going to be very, very interesting, because Spencer Columbus has played, I think, maybe a tougher conference and a tougher schedule.
Yeah, I would agree, and I think that kind of we're going to talk about this in a second when we get to Edgar as well. Kind of the Loyal Greenwood is a team we kind of talked about all year, and obviously Edgar walked away with the win. We'll talk about that, but another team that we talked about all year that had a really nice showing in Level 1, Spencer Columbus. I think a great feather in their cap to finish off the regular season, get to round 1 and get out of round 1 is a great job for them.
And that is a CWC large team, and going to kind of group the other 3 in this division, Division 5. 3 big wins for CWC large. Stratford beat Richland Center 41-9. Brady Berg 5 of 10, 147 yards, 2 touchdowns. Colton Bright, 3 catches, 103 yards and 2 scores. Brooks Vandenhoof, 18 rushes, 161 yards and 3 scores for Stratford. Wittenberg-Burnhamwood went on the road, and they were dominant at Brookfield Academy, 42-12, 27-0 at halftime, 42-0 after 3. Chargers, 373 yards rushing as a team. Caden Yeager, 6 for 116 and 3 scores. Bo Davis, 15 for 114, a touchdown for Wittenberg-Burnhamwood. And Amherst using a run game as well, 42-14 over Lancaster. Aiden Nairdahl, 21 rushes, 257 yards and 5 scores. Michael Gladowski, 7 of 13, 119 and a touchdown. Sully Perkins, 3 catches, 69 yards and a score. One thing that I think all 3 of those teams share, they obviously won at the line of scrimmage.
One at the line of scrimmage, played their brand of football, right? I would say the one maybe eyebrow raiser a little bit is Wittenberg-Burnhamwood, right? They've been kind of been inconsistent. We haven't been sure. This was a pretty convincing win and a great night for them, and kind of what we expect out of them when they're playing well, right? The big yards, the solid defense, good at the line of scrimmage.
And the defense is actually the biggest thing because they had such a hard time against Amherst the week before. That kind of jumped out. And who knows? I mean, we talk about it all the time. We aren't there all the time. Does somebody get a little bit more healthy? Does, what's happening in some of these games? But Wittenberg-Burnhamwood, again, that's a nice win, and really nice wins for all those teams. And we're going to stop right here for now because we're running a little bit late. We'll get to Division 6 and Division 7 coming up. But coming up next, we will have our coach guest for this week. We'll be talking to Tyler Kramer, the head football coach at Wausau East High School. And then coming up at 7:06, our student-athlete guest, Camille Soboleski, the outstanding senior for the Newman Catholic Cardinals, as they get set for sectional play semifinals tomorrow, and then with a win sectional final and a trip to state on the line on Saturday. But Tyler Kramer, the Lumberjack head coach, is coming up next. Big High School Sports Show on 98.9 WXCO.
We are the NFHS. That stands for the National Federation of State High School Associations. But really, what we stand for, together with the WIAA, are the 178,000 high school sports students in Wisconsin. And so we stand. We stand for the runners, soccer and basketball players. We stand for their coaches, administrators, and officials. We stand for the swimmers, football players, and wrestlers. We stand for the golfers, softball, and volleyball players. We stand as the national leader and advocate for high school athletics and all who participate in them and make them possible. Because it is our purpose to ensure that high school students get to play, perform, and compete together. To learn more about who we are and what we stand for, visit nfhs.org.
And welcome back. It is the Big High School Sports Show on 98.9 WXCO, online at WXCO.FM, mobile devices, and Alexa by searching WXCO, and on the Civic Media app. I am Chad Holmes along with Jason Foster, and we're very happy to welcome in our coach guest for this week, the head football coach at Wausau East, head coach of the Lumberjacks, Tyler Kramer. Coach, great to see you.
Thank you for having me.
Well, it's always interesting because sometimes we do bring on coaches. They're either in the midst of the season or they're getting ready for a big game, coming off a big win. In this case, you're coming off the end of the season. You had a level 1 game at Mount Horeb Barnaville last week. Before we talk about the season as a whole, you were just saying that this Mount Horeb Barnaville team, very impressive. What was the game like last week? It was another playoff trip. This was a long trip. Last year you played at home for your team. But what was the game like last week? How did your team play?
I think the energy was really good coming out. I think if you look at the box score early in the game, I think they only scored 2 touchdowns in the first half, and they were both on 4th downs in the red zone. So you look at that, if that goes the other way, it's just the boys came to compete, and I think they were ready for that. And understand Mount Horeb has been a really good program. I think they've been conference champs of a nice conference for the past 5 years, and they have a couple kids going to Division I schools, and you could tell that those kids work. And I think the response this year was a lot of, this is the kind of work we need to put in for next year. And having a young team, I think that's the best thing that you can hear after a game like that.
Yeah, last Friday afternoon I was at an East Side Quick Trip and filling up with gas, and the guy in the truck on the other side of the pump got out, and he had on his Wausau East back-to-back playoffs sweatshirt on, and I thought, what a great thing that is for the community, you guys, the team, the program. How important is it to last year I know you guys had really high expectations and you had a really great group of athletes who kind of the stats and the big numbers. Graduating those guys, there kind of had to be a few question marks coming into this year. So it had to be a really nice feeling kind of getting back to the playoffs this year and kind of taking that to another step.
Yeah, I think we talked through it, and obviously we had some really big roles to fill with Charlie Cayley or Jaden Garrett or Jesse Nemgetzik, and I could list a ton of guys, Davis Winter.
Yeah.
Just huge spots to fill, and understand that we were going to have really young guys coming back through that. And something that I talked out last year before we had even gone to the playoffs is, in 50 years of Wausau being a school, they had gone to the playoffs 10 times. And I said, that's a school our size that's been around like that. I said, that's something that can't happen. So back-to-back was a huge goal for us. I think you look at the regular season, we would have wanted a couple games to go different ways. But I think that's the challenges that you need to go through with a young team, and understanding you can't overlook anybody, and you have to come to play, especially in the GNC where it kind of cannibalized itself this year. Where I think you could look at the scores at the end of any Friday night and not be able to guess who was going to win each game.
I was going to say, I think Vegas had a really hard time setting numbers and wins and losses for the GNC this year.
I think you kind of touched on the little bit of a roller coaster that your team had this year. I think got off to a pretty good start. I thought looked very good at Westby, and then you came back and had a very challenging game, your home opener, and had a chance to win. And then all of a sudden you got a little banged up and things kind of went sideways. But the way your team responded, you knew at the end of the season what you had to do in order to get to the postseason playoffs, and you were able to do it. And I imagine for especially the kids that are coming back, having that challenge and being able to succeed by winning those 3 out of the last 4 games to get to the postseason is something to build on as well.
And that was the message after the game on Fridays, and I asked the guys to look back to when we were 1-4, and everything was kind of in despair, and we're not really sure where we're at in the conference. We had thought we were going to be in a much different spot. I know you take a 1-point loss to Tomahawk, and then you have Rhinelander up by 14 to start the game, and then it kind of falls apart. And just understanding how you respond out of that, and winning 3 of the last 4 with a new sophomore quarterback, and giving Xander the ability to just play defense, I think let him shine on the field quite a bit. And getting healthy, I think after the Tomahawk game, I couldn't tell you how many kids we had in the training room every day, and that's a test to Coach Riley with how physical his team is. But yeah, just being able to, I think every type of adversity I think you could battle through, we got tested this year, and being able to win 3 of the last 4 to make the playoffs really showed who we are as a team.
And let's talk a little bit about that. Like, who were you guys as a team? Because to overcome the barriers, right, those injuries and those losses and those bumps in the road, obviously you must have had some really nice senior leaders or just overall leaders. So who were some of the guys who kind of rallied the troops and kind of decided to dig in and get back on those winning ways?
I think you look at someone like a Logan Glavinsky, and he's probably my favorite kid to talk about in a lot of ways, because he was my ball boy when I played. And being around him for that long and knowing that he's been there as he started at left guard for us to start the season, and then we had some problems snapping, and he took that role right away, and getting that O-line where we're returning 4 of those guys, and we had 5 O-linemen start, at least 5 underclass O-linemen that started at least 4 games at the varsity level, and showing them what it takes. He's a Eau Claire commit. Caden Meverden, first team unanimous, all conference for DB, and him showing the wide receivers how he does things and what kind of work needs to go in and how he watches a quarterback. And Aiden Kildee as a junior, as a kid that's obviously a very special talent. He fills up the box score every time he's in there, and just gets those guys to reset. And this is the type of work I do, and this is what I'm doing, extra time in film. And him and my defensive coordinator had started taking extra time on Tuesdays to do defensive film the second half of the season, where it's like they'd end practice and their whole starting defense would go out to do another hour of film by choice. And that was something that they enjoyed doing. And I could list a ton of kids like Connor Machi that was a kid I didn't suit up for varsity last year, and he ended up making honorable mention all conference this year. And he was a kid, just so many of those guys, and the list could go on and on. We're just understanding that we had a goal in mind to start the season, and the goal might have changed a little bit, but this is not who we are at this point when it was 1-4. And when you look at East history, I mean, even when I played, it was a piece of, you looked at it a lot different in that way, and you're almost looking towards the end of the season, and these guys were taking it week by week, exactly what we expected.
Another senior that to be able to be successful, you have to run the football. And you had Ian Stahl, and he had a 1,000-yard rusher this year. I think he finished with close to 1,200 yards rushing on the year. And one thing that stood out, I think when we had him on, we talked about this, and I mentioned to him that the Mosinee game, the day before that game, I was over at practice, and I would have sworn there's no chance he's playing in that game. And then during the game and in the fourth quarter, it gets to the point where the best, sometimes you got to be smart as a coach. You got to say, hey, we got to make sure that he's going to be healthy for the stretch drive. Where you knew then you had to win out to make it to the playoffs. But it felt like he wanted to stay in the football game. It felt like he really played tough this season to help your team get over that finish line as well.
100%, and he was just as important, if not the most important, key cogwheel on the offense, where it was and Ian's a fun one. I hope he's listening to this, because him and I have had a lot of good conversations about this kind of stuff, and this was his second year of football in high school, and that type of speed, it's hard to stop for anybody. I know that's what the Mount Horeb coaches talked about a lot with me after the game, and he just got better as the season went on, and understanding hole assignments and where you're going to cut and how we can get your speed and your elusiveness to the outside. And I think it clicked for him probably about the Medford game, where it was, if I put my all into this, everybody else is going to put their all into this. And as a kid who he's always been a baseball stud, and I think that's what everybody knew him from, understood that he could be a first-team all-conference football guy too, with how athletic he was, and his growth as a leader and a teammate was something that really surprised me and really made a good impact on me.
I want to kind of ask you about that Medford game, because I would think if you were able to put it into a bottle, what you'd like to have almost every week, that would be the night, because in a football game, there's certain things you have to do to win the football game. There's always a handful of big plays, and I think we saw those on the defensive side on fourth downs. Being able to get the big plays with the run game, and to be able to be smart with the football with a young quarterback in his first start. That game, in a microcosm, is probably what you are trying to put together, at least, isn't it?
100%. And I think that's one we looked at with Cam's first start being that game, was put him in the position to make the least amount of mistakes as possible. We knew, and something we talked about, and I've talked to him with the last 5 weeks as it's gone on, was you were going to make mistakes. I expected to make mistakes. You're a sophomore. This is a tough conference. And I think his completion percentage was pretty good. I know having your first pass being a 90-yard touchdown, we'll take that. We'll take that all day. But that game, just as establishing your offense, I think they went, something like 0 for 7 on fourth down, and against a team that doesn't generally punt much and doesn't generally kick field goals is huge. And being able to stand up to that against a really good conference opponent that has good history and rich tradition in this conference and was just conference champs a year ago. And I know that they're young and they're going to come back and they're going to be a team that to test everybody in the next couple of years, I think showed the kids. I think that was probably the spark that we needed for the rest of the season.
Yeah, way too early to ask this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. As you guys just turned in your equipment and had what is the next step? Like, you kind of talked about it with the kids, and obviously you and the coaches, and you kind of have a vision about who you were last year, the things you accomplished this year. What is the next step for the Wausau East football program as you look to 2026?
I think the message is still the same as it was last year. We push kids to more sports, and if you're not in more sports, I expect you to be in the weight room, and it's something just having everybody adamant and keeping each other in check with that. And I think this is the most together we've felt as a team, where I felt comfortable that I didn't have to lead it in the off season. I think on the offensive side of the ball, we'll return 8 starters or 9 kids that started at least 4 or 5 games for us. So that's something that we look up to, and just having a couple more of those kids step up as big leaders in the off season. I think at a Division III school, and I know the divisions are different for every sport, but we look at Division III school for football as like, I want my kids to be shared through as many sports as possible, whether it's basketball, boys swimming, wrestling, in the spring, baseball, track, whatever it can be. So you're constantly competing at different times. And I think that's something that I've showed, and other coaches on my staff, whether it's Mitch Zeronis or Dan Garrett, have showed that we're going to be at a lot of things. So we expect you guys to be at a lot of things, and we're going to put the work in when you guys put the work in.
Again, we're talking to Tyler Kramer, the head football coach at Wausau East High School, here on the Big High School Sports Show on 98.9 WXCO. Kind of building on this, sport to sport, and trying to build, athletics at Wausau East. We're seeing it at Tomahawk. Winning does breed winning, doesn't it?
100%. And I think we look at like football and basketball last year. I think you look at, like, we had Mitch kind of joined on with football as a volunteer guy late in the season. Mitch Zeronis I'm talking about, and he helped a lot with a lot of coaching stuff. And then Coach Shallow was another guy that's not around East anymore, but he helped us out a ton last year with football and basketball. And then me and Coach Garrett all being together and being centered on one thing. Is two long seasons in a row is the best thing you can wish for, and I think the football season that we had last year, being able to host a playoff game and have a really good showing and an absolute shootout. I don't love a 43-41 game or whatever the score ended up being, and then going to state for basketball I think it showed a lot of people there is a lot of life left at Wausau East, where the sports were in a not so fun spot. I think we look at 10 years ago or so, probably around when I graduated, it was not always fun to be around Wausau East athletics, but kids got excited. And I think I was the one managing shirt sales when we were doing or helping out with our booster club, and I think we sold like almost 800 shirts for, and you'll see them, the state-bound shirts from 2025, and it's something that people are still excited about. And it just looks to continue, and you see it with the excitement even in our other sports, where volleyball is looking to grow and girls basketball is looking to grow, and different sports that everybody's around. We're all supporting each other, and one piece of success lights a fire under everybody.
For sure. Talking a little bit more about the conference, right? And I like how you phrased it before, that the conference kind of cannibalized itself throughout the season, like from week to week. Who the heck knew? But we spent a lot of time talking about those games, but we'll spend a lot of time yet tonight talking about the games coming up. Through your experience this year, of the three teams remaining, Merrill, Mosinee, and Tomahawk, who's the best team? Like, who do you feel is the most set up to kind of have a nice run here in the playoffs?
I think Merrill has a really tough matchup this week, I would say. I think you look at them size-wise, if they can get the ball rolling on offense, they can compete with a lot of teams. Mosinee is I think they're a different thing. Treve is a special player, I think, to the area, to the conference, where he was up for player of the year on both sides of the ball, and you just don't have that type of kid very often at all. I mean, I think Mosinee was the last one to have a Keegan Jerschley a couple years ago, where it's how long can they go, how long can Treve go? And I think it was even a piece, we faced them in week 6, and I'm like, man, this kid's got to be beat up, and then he torched us the whole game. And then Tomahawks, just how physical can they stay? And then they've had absolute bad injuries, and they're like lower numbers than the rest of us. Obviously, they're matching up schools that are the same size now, which I think benefits them a ton. I think if I were to pick one, I think Tomahawk being in Division 5 and being able to compete with that, I think looking forward, competing with teams like Stratford, I think would be tough.
Yeah.
But I'd be more than excited to go to that game and see how it goes. And I think Mosinee's got a really good chance to make a good run at everything too. With their seeding, I think they got a good spot and everything. I think looking forward, not to jump ahead for them, but looking forward to matchups that they could have. I think they're pretty favorable to make a run here, and I think that's something Coach Stoffel talked about earlier this year with that kind of stuff.
Something that I think I mentioned to you and talked about is the stability aspect within your program, with Coach Garrett on the basketball side, with yourself on the football side. And I don't think it's a coincidence that both these programs, and you cannot overestimate the power of talent, but it also, you have to develop relationships and have these kids come out for these sports. How proud are you of being part of these programs that are helping Wausau East reestablish themselves, being a lumberjack yourself, being a graduate yourself, providing the stability for these programs, for these families, for these kids, and then a little bit of success as well? I imagine it's got to be something that has been quite a ride the last handful of years for you, hasn't it?
Huge. And I think oh God, I can look back at it, and it's like my junior and senior year when I played, we went 0-9 2 years in a row, and I think that was just a dark time for Wausau East, just how things were going. And I think obviously it was tough being in kind of that Fox Valley mix there, where it's like we were ending the season on Wausau West, Appleton North, and Kimberly every year, and you know that Kimberly's going to be a tough one for anybody.
Somebody did not like you with those schedules are made out.
So it was a tough time at that point, and I think joining into coaching, you could see little glimpses early on, and it's like just getting someone that was going to commit to stay. I talked about it a lot when I took over. We had 7 head coaches in 12 years, and that's never going to be a recipe for success. I think even looking at the basketball success is like you've had glimpses. I think even I believe my senior year would have been 2017. We ended up going to the sectional final as well and run into a lacrosse central team with like Kobe King and those guys. but just glimpses and a little bit of consistency can go a long way. And the kids knowing that you're going to be there tomorrow, I think means a lot to them. And knowing that I don't think there's a lot of Wausau events you're not going to see me or Dan Garrett or both of us at. And just knowing that those kids are just as important to us as any other aspect of our life.
So going back to the off season a little bit, obviously I know you coach in multiple seasons, and I know there's a strong emphasis on the athletes playing multiple sports, which I think is great. What are some of the things that you guys kind of try to steal your football team a little bit in the off season? Like, what do you guys do? Some leadership stuff? Do you guys get together at all in the off season and kind of talk about some of that stuff? What does the Wausau's football program do other than making sure that kids are playing multiple sports, getting in the weight room? What are the other little things that you think kind of give you guys an edge? And it doesn't have to be in the winter, spring, might be summer stuff as well. What are some of the things that you feel have been the secret to taking the steps forward as a program?
I think it's all been kind of slowly ramping up as we've gone through it. And you look at, and I can thank somebody like Charlie Cayley, where he had a really awesome idea of just getting the starting linemen together, and then it started being, let's do this a couple times a week. And it was even when I was coaching wrestling a few years ago, where it's like, hey, can I just get a couple tips here on something like this, or can you point me in the right direction for film, or get me a lifting thing? And then you'd see 3 linemen in there, and then you see 5 linemen in there, and then it ends up being half the entire group we have on the team. And just an emphasis on more. I try to let the kids, when they're in their sport, take care of their sport, because I think as a coach, and I tell Dan Garrett all the time, don't start open gyms too early. But let them go through their sport, and if they want extra stuff to do, I can find them extra stuff to do. And I think we have an awesome lifting coach, and so Aaron Rothwell at East, and he does a great job with the kids in the off season. It's an expectation of if you're not in there, you're probably not going to play. And it's nice to have that luxury at Wausau's now, where our numbers are healthy enough where you can say that to a kid, where it breeds enough competition that if the guy that was one spot under you is lifting all off season and you're not doing anything, he's going to pass you. And just more of an emphasis on open fields early in the summer, and then going to a couple camps here and there. I think that it's been nice seeing kids going the college route with some of our football stuff and different looks, and see how many more kids are interested in that road is something that it gets me excited. And you see one kid commit somewhere, and then you have 5 more kids that want to see kind of where they could land in that realm. Has helped us a lot with off-season expectations.
Building on that, this off-season, I imagine, is as vital as any, because there's so much excitement with the amount of kids that have performed this year, the number of snaps that these kids had this year, knowing that they have the experience. But you can't settle. You can't just say, well, I'm going to show up again next summer and start again. You have an opportunity, these kids, don't they, to really do something because of that experience, plus the talent that you do have coming back. I mean, it must be exceptionally exciting to have the possibilities, but you know that the work has to be done.
100%. I think you look at this is probably, I think, since I've taken over or even been a part of the program, this is the most sophomores we've had in rotation or starting throughout the season, where you see a kid, well, you can't miss him. A Miles Mallory is a 6'4", 330-pound kid that's strong as an ox, and understanding what he has to do for his assignments. Or Malcolm McKeechin, whereas 2 kids were starting at the D-line, where I think that's real tough as a sophomore, especially in a GNC that's run heavy, and understanding that you're going to get double-teamed a lot and put on your butt all the time as a sophomore. And looking at those type of kids, Lincoln Bry was one that started at the O-line for me for a good portion of the season. And getting those kids that got to see the speed already, or a Turner Zink who started at my O-line the entire season, was understanding this is your game speed, and this is what you have to bring your teammates up to. And they know from the juniors, I think my junior class is as respectful, no character issues. You have kids that are excited to get good at every sport that they're in. And I can thank a lot of kids like an Aiden Kildee for that, where it's he just buys in 100% into everything that he's doing, and it's showing up for him. With his recruiting right now, a first-team all-conference selection, even an Anago game that I sat him in, and he was all mad at me because he was a little banged up, but how good he was on the sidelines, and just helping coach his teammates the entire week that he was out, and being present, I think has showed a lot of those juniors and sophomores that the amount of work you put in directly correlates to where we're going to finish up next year, and we have big hopes, real big hopes.
One of the things I love talking with the GNC student athletes during the football season is like who's their favorite rivalry and what are the matchups. And I think you guys are always in a unique position, even you as the coach. So I'll kind of ask you the same thing, because coaching in multiple seasons, you're coaching in multiple conferences. So what do you see as the differences? I mean, we know it's enrollments and divisions and all that stuff, but is that one of the things you enjoy about it, kind of having some other opponents instead of just playing like in basketball, you're playing Everson's Bash and all that, but in football, you have the opportunity to build some of those rivalries with the Mosenees, the Medfords, the Rhinelanders, the Merrills. Is that something you think is good and healthy for the kids and kind of has helped you guys take a step forward?
100%. I think, and not to keep connecting to when I was there, but it's a piece of, like, we play the same people for everything. And I think football being just a little bit different in that way, where we're not going to match up with an Everest, we're not going to match up with a West, and you're going to see a much different style of football, different size teams, and just different kind of personality to the teams is how I like to say it. And I think that's why I like the playoff structure this year, because you got to see a lot of different things. But getting excited about playing a Merrill, and I know Merrill was in the Valley for basketball last year, so we did face them. But getting to see a Mosenee every year and knowing what their history has been on the football side of it, and getting to see a Medford guaranteed is it always a game that you're going to look forward to when they have a Paxton Rothmeyer who's rushing for 20 yards a carry. It felt like no, it's not. but to play against good programs like that, to see something a little bit different, I think is a super fun aspect of it, and it's creating healthy new rivalries that we can have around the school.
And I guess final question I'm going to ask you is around the school, for the school community, and I think it goes back again to what you've been able to build a little bit. How important is having some success in athletics to the whole general feel around the school? Because it's not the most important thing. It's about academics and trying to build these young people into great adults. But it does add something to the whole school environment, doesn't it?
100%. I think that's something me and Coach Garrett probably sound like broke records when we talk about it, but culture wins. And I think you can have, whether it's us on a Friday night or volleyball on a Thursday night or soccer on a Tuesday, it's like when you can have the whole school behind that and having big student sections and see just different levels of success, but success at any level gets the kids excited about being around, and something for them to talk about for the next couple of days, and it's something for them to remember when it turns into constant success and consistent success, where I still have kids talking about football season from last year and still hearing about a play in the Medford game that I'm not thinking about anymore, but somebody else was excited about and excited to show me on their film, is something that kind of radiates through the school. And if you talk to Darcy or AD or Luke Barth or principal, I think it's something that you see kids are smiling every day at that school. And we don't have many issues at Wausau East. I think a big piece of it is just because the culture's so good there.
Any final comments?
Just congratulations on another great season, making the playoffs again, and good luck going into the winter.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Head coach Tyler Kramer, again, thank you for coming on over. Congrats, and we'll catch you during the winter, I'm sure, somewhere along the line. So.
Sounds good to me.
Coming up, we have a top-of-the-hour information update, news, weather, and sports, and then hour number 2 of the show. We'll start off with our student-athlete guest from Newman Catholic, their outstanding senior volleyball player, Camille Soboleski. She is coming up next. The Big High School Sports Show on 98.9 WXCO. And welcome back. It is hour number 2 of the Big High School Sports Show on 98.9 WXCO. Online at WXCO.FM, mobile devices, and Alexa by searching WXCO, and on the Civic Media app. And we're also live on YouTube, youtube.com, and the 98.9 WXCO channel there as well. And of course, if you miss any of our shows, you can go back and watch on YouTube or subscribe to the Big High School Sports Show on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. And you can also go to our website and go under the shows and be able to listen there as well. With Jason Foster, I'm Chad Holmes. It's time for our student-athlete guest for this week from Newman Catholic High School, from their volleyball team and softball team as well. Senior Camille Soboleski. Camille, thank you for coming on in today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
It's a very exciting time because we were talking during the break about how, sectional week, and you got a sectional semifinal coming up tomorrow at the Newman Catholic High School gym against Eau Claire Emmanuel Lutheran. And knock on wood, you get a W. You get to play at Riverdale in a sectional final on Saturday. You've had the experience of going to state. How can you talk about the process? Is it hard sometimes to not look ahead, not to think about, I got to get back to Green Bay, got to get back to the state tournament, the whole process of the whole season maybe, in fact? Is it hard for a team that has made it to state to realize, hey, you start all over again, you have to go through it all over again to get to that ultimate prize?
Yeah, I feel like sometimes people assume, hey, it's Newman Catholic, they automatically get to go to state. But no, it really comes down to the girls and I just putting in the work every day at the gym. We get in there and we want to get it done because ultimately we have the same goal every year and we know it's not just going to happen for free.
So one of my favorite things about watching, I have two things about watching Newman Catholic play volleyball. Number one is I don't like losing to them, but oftentimes we have because you guys are outstanding. But one of my favorite things to watch about you guys is obviously super talented, right? A lot of big hits, that sort of stuff. But honestly, there's been times when you weren't out there. This is probably more last year. The amazing thing to me about Newman, and I do not know a lot about volleyball. I really like watching it, but I'm going to not use the important. I know nothing about strategy and lineups and all that. The ball doesn't hit the ground on your side of the net. Like, you guys are so efficient. You guys are always where you're supposed to be. How does that happen?
Well, we really just emphasize pursuit in the gym. So even if you know or if you don't think you're going to get the ball up, just getting a touch on it, because when you have that mindset, you'll get so many more balls up than you would ever imagine. Yeah.
I was looking at your season and records and standings and stats and everything to be ready for tonight. And one of the things that kind of jumps out is the fact that record-wise, it does not jump out. But then you go deeper and you see the level of competition that you play every year at Newman Catholic. I imagine that for a team like yourself that has high expectations, and I think you probably know that you have a good opportunity of doing things, boy, the schedule must be very exciting to be challenged on a regular basis during the regular season.
Yeah, I definitely say it's very beneficial. We have a tournament in Appleton at the beginning of the season, and we play a lot of good D1, D2 schools, so it definitely helps us prepare for later on in the season when we have tougher conference matches or playoff matches.
Real quickly, one thing I noticed as well this year is you faced a number of these teams multiple times. You faced West multiple times. You faced Everest multiple times. You faced Edgar multiple times. And each of those three, at least that I noticed, your team was better the second time. You actually lost to Edgar in the first time in your conference, and then late in I think it was at the Wausau West event,
Yep.
You beat them. The first time around against West, it went 5 games, and then you swept them in 2 at West late. And then with Everest, you lost 2 straight the first time around and then took them to 5 late. Is this a team that is getting better as the season has gone on? Is that what you sense on the court with your teammates?
Yes, it definitely is. After the first time we lose to a team, we definitely try to work together to figure out what we might have messed up on and what we can improve next time. And then we also like to watch film together, because when we watch film, we definitely figure out some of their strategies and we can strategize ourselves. So that's kind of what we prioritize.
Mm.
You say we, which I love. Tell me about the we. Who are your teammates? Who are the players who really kind of gel together, and who are the leaders on your team, and who kind of have everyone has an important role, but who are kind of the main players, and who have the supporting role that really make things go?
Like you said, we're all kind of the leaders when it comes to Newman volleyball, but a few that stood out this year, I'd say, is definitely Lexi Rice with her setting. I know she's done so much in the off season just to get to where she is, so it's really incredible just to see where she's come, as well as my fellow seniors, Anna France and Lauren Thiel. They've also put in a lot of work in the off season, and they show up every day ready to work, ready to be on that grind.
So much of individual stats does come from the team play. I think you mentioned the setting. And one of the things, and again, you may not want to hear it, but you ranked number 3 in the entire state, Division 1 through 5, in kills this year. And I saw some reporting done on you reaching 1,000 kills, but you have more than 500 this season alone, which is pretty amazing in itself. I wanted to kind of delve a little bit into your positioning because I saw an interview that you'd done earlier in the year talking about how you've changed from an outside hitter to a middle hitter.
Yes.
For those folks out there, even those of us who have seen a lot of volleyball, what is the difference between in that realm? Because we often see the outside hitter coming in with those tomahawk, and then the move to the inside. What is the big difference for you as somebody that is considered one of the top offensive performers for your team?
I would say the biggest difference is probably the timing of when you go up to hit the ball. For a middle, it's a lot faster and more of a tempo set, whereas for an outside, you have to kind of wait and then gauge your timing so you know when to take off, when you're at your highest peak, when to hit the ball. So, but either way, you can run both quick sets, slow sets, whatever would work best.
I know you probably play a ton of club volleyball in addition to the high school team. What do you play in club? Like, did you know this transition was happening from last year to this year? Or so did you have you been doing that all summer and last spring, summer, and off season? Or is it kind of a impromptu change for you?
Well, actually, after my high school season freshman year, my coach came up to me and she was like, "Hey, Camille, how would you feel about being an outside?" And I was like, "Yeah, let's go after it." And ever since then, I've just always loved being on the outside. I feel like there's more versatility between things you can do. And yeah.
Well, I want to ask you about the challenges. And Coach here was saying that over the years when he would see you face Wausau West, you'd be often battling injuries. Talk a little bit about what are the injuries that you've had to deal with during your high school career?
Well, I had both a knee injury and then a shoulder injury. So at first, the knee injury, it was my sophomore year, and it kept me out for about like the first 2 to 3 weeks of volleyball. And it was definitely tough on me mentally, but I really think it helped me grow as a player, both like with my team and then like off the court as well, because I just learned how to be supportive from the bench as well as on the court, and I could help with what shots they might want to hit, where to go, strategy, stuff like that. And then also my shoulder injury I had this past season in the summer, and it kind of set me back for summer league wise. And during that time, I also embraced the role of being on the sidelines and being in coaching. And it definitely just brought a whole new perspective on like how grateful I am to even be able to play, be able to be there. And just I kind of grew my IQ from watching instead of playing as well.
Volleyball's a really long season. And you guys play a bunch of multis too. So you have days when you're playing many, many matches throughout the course of a day. Oftentimes, we mentioned it earlier, you guys are one of the smallest schools in those tournaments in your conference. Who are some of your favorite rivalries, both conference and non-conference? Who do you get excited about playing, and do you play against some of the other people that you play in club? Like, do you like those matchups too, playing against some of the people you play with at other times of the year?
Yeah, so I definitely play against a couple of my club teammates. I have a club teammate, Caitlin Hartnighty, and she plays on Edgar, and she's this amazing libero, phenomenal. And so I'd say it's always fun to play Edgar because they're just such a diverse team. They really have a diverse offense. Their defense is just amazing. And then I would also say Stratford is one of our rivalries. We've always gone back and forth with Stratford, many 5-set games over the course of my high school career. So that's always a fun one as well. And then for non-conference, I would say Everest, just because it's also, again, always a really competitive match, and we have different strengths and different weaknesses on both sides. So really trying to figure each other out and then go after it is always super fun.
Again, we're talking to Camille Soboleski from Newman Catholic High School, senior for the Fighting Cardinals and their volleyball team as they get set for a sectional semifinal at Newman tomorrow evening. We'll talk about your matchup tomorrow and maybe through the weekend in a little bit, but you are going to be playing volleyball at the collegiate level at St. Olaf College. We always like to talk about the process because it's really, I think we said this in the past, it's one of those early decisions that basically you have to make for your life.
Yep.
And it's going to be a lot more as you continue in your life. How did you go about the whole collegiate decision making? Because you are somebody that's been known as, I think, a standout on the volleyball court for a number of years. So that's probably been out front for quite a long time. Could you talk about the process you went through to get to St. Olaf?
Well, I at first told myself, hey, I know so many people get stressed out about the recruiting process, so you're just not going to get stressed out and you're going to take it day by day and let it just, whatever happens, happens. And I knew I wanted to find a team that had an amazing culture and I felt like I could seamlessly transition into. So when I first started searching, I was looking for like connections, who I felt connections with between coaches and some of the teammates. And once I started talking to Coach Wood, the coach at St. Olaf, she just had such a welcoming vibe, and I loved the environment, loved the campus. Academics is a super high standard there, as well as athletics, and I just think it's a super successful program that I would love to be a part of.
And what are you going to study when you're at St. Olaf? When volleyball's all done, what's the next step for you?
Well, that's a good question. I'm still choosing between either business or psychology, most likely. I have an interest in both areas, but I'm still not quite sure what I want to pursue.
Cool. When you are not, and I know you're very busy with volleyball. Volleyball keeps people very busy. But what do you like to do to get away from it? Maybe to recombobulate a little bit from time to time, where things get so hectic in one's life as a young person. What do you like to do to kind of get away from it all?
When I'm not playing volleyball, which, like you said, it's a rare occurrence,
Right.
but I like to hang out with my friends, just go get a nice meal together, or just like relax, take a nice bath, read a book, just anything like that helps you de-wind and calm down a little bit. Yeah.
What is your favorite class or has been your favorite class at Newman Catholic, and who's your favorite teacher?
Well, I never thought I would say this, but my favorite class was college chemistry. It was super difficult at first because we started with regular chemistry, and then the transition is obviously going to be a lot harder. But the teacher that I have for that, Mr. Smith, is just amazing. He really makes sure that you understand all the material. And if you have any questions, you can always go ask him, and he'll give you the extra help you need. So I'd say college chemistry.
You're a multi-sport athlete. What else are you involved in?
Well, I used to be involved in softball, but I do not play this past season.
I was going to ask you about that because I think that sometimes it's very difficult. We've seen this where kids have opportunities maybe beyond the high school level where you have to make hard decisions. Was that part of the calculus into maybe focusing completely on volleyball?
Yes, I knew as much as I loved playing softball and just being with my friends again, I knew that I wanted to pursue volleyball at the next level, and I knew to get to that, I would have to train more. And so it was one of those things where the lesser had to go. So that's probably why I stopped.
We talked to Coach Micklig a lot on this program and talk a lot with a lot of the football players at Newman Catholic. Tell me about your Newman Catholic experience and what you love about Newman Catholic and your time there as you start to wind down your senior year.
I love the close-knit community of Newman Catholic. Since it's a smaller school, we all really get to know everybody very well, and then we can really form those relationships. And I also love how all athletes come to the other athletes' games. So you'll see the football players coming to our games and getting everybody hype in the student section. And then you'll also see us volleyball players go to the football games as well, because we just all really want to support each other and see each other succeed.
It kind of brings up a broader question, because as somebody that has been, I think, at the forefront of being a top volleyball player, you have the choice of maybe going to a Division I school or Division II school, whatever it may be, or going to Newman Catholic. Why did you choose Newman Catholic? What are the reasons? Was it athletically? Was it academically? Was it faith-based? What was maybe the decision of going to Newman Catholic as opposed to maybe with your, I think, ideas and maybe dreams of playing volleyball at the collegiate level back, a few years ago? What was it about Newman Catholic that said, hey, this is a place for me?
I definitely say it was two things, both faith-based. I'm a really big advocate on faith. I want to make sure I'm getting a good faith-based education. as well as wanting to form relationships with others. I feel like, again, Newman Catholic is just great at forming relationships with other people, and I knew I was going to be looking for like those lifelong friendships. And yeah.
As you're heading into sectionals this week, it sounds like you had mentioned it earlier, which I think is awesome, that you guys watch a lot of film and do that sort of thing. When you come into these big matchups against teams that maybe you haven't played as much as your conference opponents and maybe some teams you see in the multis and that sort of thing, do you spend more time focusing on what your opponent does, or do you spend more time focusing on what you guys do best and making sure that you're at the top of your game?
I'd say it's a little bit of both. So we both want to see kind of what they're doing, how they set up, so we can form how we're going to play, because you kind of have to really look at where their defense and offense is to make sure you know what spots are going to be open, what spots you want to aim for, as well as like which players you may want to target and serve receive, who you might want to stay away from. So just little things like that.
What jumps out about Eau Claire Emmanuel Lutheran, other than the fact that they were almost on their backs in their last match? I mean, they were down 2-0, be able to come all the way back and win. So that has to be in the back of the mind if you do have, hopefully, get off to a really good start, that this is a team that does not give up. Anything else stand out in terms of your preparation?
I'd say they're a team that's super gritty and scrappy on defense, so they're not going to let balls drop. They're going to get touches, and I think our goal is to just really not give up, as well as pursue the open spots and really just focus on what we can do as a team to build each other up to hit those open spots.
Tell me a little bit about your coach. Obviously been there a long time, lots of success, a lot of different teams and a lot of different ways of winning. What's it like playing for Coach
Betty Lang?
Yes.
Yes. Coach Betty is just phenomenal. She knows the game full-heartedly, and she's willing to do whatever it is for the team to help us succeed. And she not only does she just care about winning, she cares about seeing us grow as players, both mentally and physically. And if you ever need like help from her, she's always willing to help. And she's just really a strong Newman advocate.
How important is it to win it all this year? You haven't won it all, have you?
No, I've not.
Do you sit back and you dream about that? I mean, because again, I feel bad because I said before, you can't skip any steps, and here I am talking about winning 4 matches here. That
apparently
you
can skip steps.
Well,
Chad.
that's one of the things about being in the media. You can do this. I mean, coaches can't do it, players can't do it, but we always do it. All speculation. But do you allow yourself maybe when you put your head on the pillow some nights to think about winning it all at Green Bay?
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. Ever since I was little and I've seen the older girls go to Green Bay, I've always dreamt of winning a championship. But I also got to be aware and be like, Camille, focus on one thing at a time, one step at a time. Because as soon as you look too far ahead, you really don't want to have to backtrack. Yeah.
I was just going to say, is there a strong alumni connection to the team and the program? Do those girls and the now women, you guys are young women, of course, as well. Do you hear from them? Do they come back? I mean, many of them are probably still in the community. Do they come watch? Is there a lot of support there?
Yeah, that's another thing I'd say about Newman volleyball is we definitely have alumni support. Just the other day, Mariah Whalen, who is also a big Newman star, came back and she helped us with some really good feedback at practice, as well as just motivating us and getting us ready for playoffs. So I definitely say that the alumni connection is super strong with us.
Any final questions, or we go to the last one?
Well, just congratulations on an awesome season and
you.
Best of luck this week and this weekend, and hope you guys have a great opportunity and make her back to Green Bay.
Yeah, thank you.
And our final question is always it's best for a senior, best for somebody that has been involved in multiple sports, but at the same time has got great experience. For somebody that is in your Newman volleyball program, maybe a freshman who's just starting their journey, based on what you've learned through the ups and the downs, through everything you've gone through the last 4 years, what piece of advice would you give that young Newman Catholic athlete as they do start their trek towards graduation in a few years?
I would just say to show up every day and give it your all, give it 100%, because you never know when it's going to be the last time that you're going to play the sport. And so just giving all out effort all the time will really take you far.
Terrific advice indeed. Camille Soboleski, congratulations on all the success you've had. Best of luck tomorrow night in the sectional semifinal and the rest of your season. Best of luck at St. Olaf when you get there next year as well. But really appreciate you coming on by tonight.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. We're going to take a timeout. Come back with more as we continue here on the Big High School Sports Show on 98.9 WXCO.
So, how are the kids?
Well, Emily made the honor roll.
Oh, good for her.
Yeah, we're really proud of her. Tyler, on the other hand, though,
What's going on?
he's been moody lately, just feeling down and not like himself.
Oh, we've been there. Nick was struggling last spring. He was so anxious and stressed.
Really? What helped?
Well, he joined the soccer team, and ever since, he's been a lot happier. He has more energy, he's less stressed, and he's definitely in a better mood at home. It's made a huge difference.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm glad he's getting out of the house, he's getting some exercise, and he's off his phone for once. It's been good for his mental health.
Sounds like it's been good for your mental health, too.
Participating in Wisconsin high school sports improves students' physical and mental health. Encourage your son or daughter to get involved. This message presented by the WIAA and the Wisconsin Athletic Directors Association.
Are you an enthusiastic sports fan? Want to have fun and get in on the action?
Heck, yes. That'd be awesome.
Have great attention to detail? Want to stay active?
Definitely.
Want to give back to the student athletes in your community?
Obviously, yes.
Then you'd make an excellent high school sports official. We need more officials in Wisconsin, because with no high school officials, there are no high school sports. Sign up today at highschoolofficials.com.
A game without a crowd is just a scrimmage. A performance without an audience is just a rehearsal. Without your presence, high school sports and the performing arts aren't possible. Ensure that these essential extracurricular activities continue to enrich the lives of students in Wisconsin. Purchase a ticket to your local high school's game or performance.
This message presented by the WIAA and the Wisconsin Athletic Directors Association.
And welcome back. Big High School Sports Show, 98.9 WXCO, WXCO.FM, mobile devices, and Alexa by searching WXCO, and on the Civic Media app. Again, thanks to both of our guests, Tyler Kramer, the Wausau East head football coach, and also Camille Soboleski, the Newman Catholic High School volleyball senior, for joining us here this evening. And again, it's really nice to be able to sit down with both a coach and a student athlete every week and be able to not feel like we got 3 minutes, you have to get real quick discussions. You learn a lot, I think, by delving a little bit deeper. And both of them are very, very well spoken, and I think we learned a lot about each of those programs.
Yeah, absolutely. Both programs doing well. Obviously, East back-to-back playoff appearances, and Coach Kramer's a huge part of that, obviously. And Camille, carrying on that tradition. And I think sometimes people miss, too. We're probably going to talk a little bit more about Stratford and Edgar and some of that. And I think
we'll talk about
it's
that.
one of those things where those programs, much like Newman Volleyball, the expectation is that you're going to make deep playoff runs, make it to state, win state championships. And there's a reason people expect that, because often you do, but also there's a lot that goes into it, and there is no gimmies or for sures. So there's a lot of pressure on these student athletes, and they do a lot of really good things.
Real quickly, it kind of brings up a point. I went down to Arrowhead last week, and Arrowhead has 6 state championships and 7 runners-up, if I'm not mistaken. And you look at it, and it was a nice field. I mean, it has a nice area, but it's nothing spectacular. When it didn't. And I don't mean this in a derogatory way at all, because it's very nice, but it's not. Frankly, I've gone to Hudson and other schools that are, I would say, more impressive because they're newer. And I'm thinking, what is it? What is the secret ingredients that allows a place like Arrowhead? And I'm driving in, and it's not really a lot of city, as I was driving in, all of a sudden, hey, you get to Heartland and there's the school and we're here. And you've been around the game for such a long time and you've been around athletic programs. Is there anything that jumps out to you in terms of what makes, and you can talk about Edgar and Stratford and other programs, anything jump out that because these aren't the same kids that were winning state championships 10 years ago, 20 years ago, but they keep rolling them in.
Well, I think it's a couple things. I think number one is socioeconomic status. It's not talked about nearly enough in high schools, and that's not to say that one student is a better athlete than the other, but what it comes to is opportunities. What those families are doing when those kids are 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. As far as personal trainers and being involved in club sports and all those things cost money. And the more money your community has and the fewer families you have that are socioeconomically challenged, free and reduced lunch, whatever the number might be, that plays a huge role. And it really paints a completely different picture. Even if you look back at those really good teams that come out of the Fox Valley Association too, Kimberly, very low socioeconomic or very, very low numbers in that category. Appleton East and Appleton West, more the urban Appleton schools aren't nearly as successful. Appleton North, kind of the suburban high school in Appleton, and a lot more success there. And you kind of go down. Neenah's a suburb of that area.
That part of the state, you look at it and you see the Green Bay schools where you think, hey, big city, they should be dominant. There's some programs within those Green Bay schools that don't have teams.
Well, who's the best team in Green Bay? Green Bay Notre Dame, right? Yeah. And I think and then the other piece of it. We know for sure how it works in the Fox Valley. We don't see it as much here. When it happens here, people want to get it all up in arms and be upset about it, but it doesn't happen a fraction here as to the way it does the Fox Valley, Milwaukee, Madison, but more importantly, those suburbs, is open enrollment. You asked the question, how do those aren't the same kids who won those championships 20, 25 years ago, 10 years ago. They are not. You're correct. But if I live next door, I can certainly get there. Or if I do live in a district that is more socioeconomically or whatever, challenged for whatever reason, and I am the best athlete at this position, it's pretty easy for my family. And we won't get into that. We don't have enough time to talk about recruiting and all those other things. But there are things out there that certainly tip the scales in other directions. Those are part of it. And it's really not. It's not sour grapes, because I wouldn't trade the kids we have in our schools and our conferences. It's what makes us who we are. And Coach Kramer talked about culture, and that's part of your culture. Like, your culture is the students within the walls. It's not the administration, the teachers, the coaches. All those things play a role, but ultimately your culture is your student body and what they're willing to buy into and what they do. But there certainly is a difference in opportunities, and that's where I think the scale gets tipped a little bit.
And also, if you do things right, it makes it a lot more difficult for some of these really good athletes to say, well, maybe I want to go. But no, if it's got a wonderful school, you got great coaches, you got great atmosphere and culture, it forces everybody to do the right things in a certain respect as well.
Absolutely.
So, you could write a book on this. Yeah. We could do a full show on this, and we still have plenty to talk about, because it's always there at the surface.
Absolutely. Even, I think we've talked about this on the show before, but you mentioned Green Bay, Oshkosh, Appleton, Wausau, Eau Claire. A multi-high school district is very different. An example, and this isn't better or worse or whatever, but the challenges, the pros, the cons, whatever words you want to use, even if you compare Wausau East, Wausau West, and DC Everest, right? Wausau's the larger community, 2 schools. You've talked to school board members on your shows in here too, all the different challenges that go into having multiple high schools, that go into having 13 elementary schools, then getting down to 8. You know what I mean? Just those things. If you are if you are 3 or 4 elementary schools, 1 middle school, 1 junior high, 1 senior high, That makes a big difference. I was just in Spash today. You go to Marshfield, and it goes back to facilities as well, right? If you're only fundraising or creating one football stadium, one football, that makes a really big difference as opposed to trying. You look at how beautiful Marshfield is. You look at what Eau Claire just did. It's awesome what they were able to do, but it's not the same as Marshfield. It's like they had turf, and then they brought in some bleachers, and then they kind of like, it's really great for them. They're ahead of where Wausau is in that regard, but it isn't the same as Marshfield Stadium and Hortonville Stadium.
You're splitting the money in two.
Exactly.
I mean, it's like very simple, very, very simple. Simple math, right?
Yes.
Simple math.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about D6 and D7 and 8-player from last week. Division 6, and I mean, you touched on it earlier. Edgar 21, Loyal Greenwood 14. Edgar 10-0. Loyal Greenwood finishes 4-6. What a game. What a game. Loyal Greenwood tied it up at 14 with 56 seconds left. A 24-yard touchdown pass from Jake Lidner to Isaac Zabel. They had a chance to take the lead, but again, boy, I bet you they wish they had a kicker at that point because you had to go for a 2-point conversion. Were not successful. And then a poor kickoff. And again, the kicking game. Again, boy, the teams, and I was talking about this on the broadcast last week between Wausau West and Arrowhead. Both teams had kickers that were capable of getting the football to the end zone. And I think almost all and Arrowhead scored a lot. I think the Warriors may have ran back 2 of the kicks because they had this big 200-pound kid who plays defensive back who can kick it as well. But Edgar got the ball at the 40-yard line. Next play, a 40-yard touchdown pass. Tucker Strite to Gavin Maurer to win the game. The only completed pass Edgar had the whole night. They were 1 of 7 passing. Maurer had 145 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns, so he scored all 3. I know that you kind of mentioned that when we talked about Loyal Greenwood being part of the CWC Large, but boy, they had struggled big time late in the season. So that was, I think, the surprising aspect. If it would have been the Loyal Greenwood team that started 4-0, that's one thing, but they had really struggled late in the season. And boy, that shows sometimes we just expect 8 versus 1, 4-5 versus 9-0. That's one of the cool things about these games.
Absolutely. And anything's possible. I don't know a ton about the game, but I highly doubt that the Edgar Wildcats weren't prepared for this game. I mean, that's not Coach Sins' style by any. So they came in. I mean, not only was it a 1-score game, it was tied with that under a minute left. It was Edgar gave up 2 touchdowns, which I don't think they've done all season.
They give up 12 points all season.
All season. And they give up, so just all of the things. I mean, you got to give so much credit to a Loyal Greenwood team, how prepared they must have been and what level of compete they were working at. I mean,
and real quick, you as a coach know how difficult it is when you go into the postseason after 2 blowout losses, where it's like they've lost 5 games in a row. How many times are these multi-sport athletes already checked out into the winter? That shows, I think, an incredible job done by everybody, the coaching staff and the players, to be ready to go into probably one of the toughest places you're ever going to go into and try to win that football game.
Absolutely, because one of the things we talked about on this show last week was, maybe they weren't as good as we thought they were. Like they benefited from their schedule early. Whether it's injuries or kids checking out or whatever, and that certainly was not the case. I mean, obviously they turned in their equipment, so there are no such thing as moral victories. Right. But holy cow, these kids have some incredible memories from a really solid football season at Loyal Greenwood.
Marathon fell to Kewanee in Division 6, 36-6. Kewanee 9-1, Marathon 4-6. Brett Paulson for Kewanee, 15 of 21, 242 yards, 2 touchdowns, 11 rushes, 90 yards and 3 scores. Waylon Delane, 109 yards rushing, and then 89 yards through the air. Something we haven't really touched on is some of the games during the course of the season where Marathon doesn't have to go to Kewanee in the first round. Even the week before when they lost to Spencer Columbus in the final game, the game they lost on a blocked field goal against Auburndale. Yeah. I mean, really, it shows, and again, that's I think one of the good aspects of this new system where every game matters.
Yeah, that's one of the things that Coach Johnson and I, not even just talking about Wausau West, if we just talked about our conference, what a difference every win or loss made. Yep. And it really, for the teams who made the playoffs, it didn't impact whether you made or didn't make the playoffs, except for maybe Spash. But the difference between being an 8 seed or a 7 seed or a 6 seed or that 5-4 matchups, I mean, it is so. And if you went back, if you had the time to look at everybody's schedule and how all these games ended, how many of those situations you would find where a team was able to win because of the matchup, and next week probably fairly decent chance they're going to get blown out. So yeah, those are definitely some of the in between the lines sort of things that don't make the headlines.
Another CWC team that was victorious was Wyowega Fremont on the road, 21-7 at Cambridge. Both teams, Wyowega 6-4, Cambridge finishes 7-3. Dawson Lynn 27 rushes, 139 yards, 2 touchdowns. 1 of 1 passing. It must have been some sort of option pass for 80 yards and a big touchdown in a 21-7 game. The quarterback Carter Burdishaw usually has pretty decent numbers, only 1 of 7 for 8 yards for Wyowega. But boy, again, it's just the thing that really jumps out about these CWC large teams is the number that won on the road.
Yeah, go on the road. Wyowega Fremont's a team that we probably, I'll speak for myself, I would say was a little underwhelming this year, right? Kind of spoke to, like, were they a team that was ready to take the next step in that conference? There were some opportunities out there. Some other teams maybe weren't playing as well or were dinged up when they played them, and they didn't really come through. So what a really nice win for that program, a level 1 on the road, make it survive and move on, and nice win for Wyowega Fremont.
One of the big upsets of last week was Auburndale at home losing to Crandon, and often we don't think of those northern teams like Crandon as being big threats in the early rounds, but they defeated Auburndale 40-33. Auburndale apparently could not really stop the run. Auburndale was an interesting team this year because I go back to even to that Marathon game early. I thought, Marathon outgained them by a significant amount, and Auburndale was able to pull it out. I was not really sure about them, but every week they would find a way to win, except for the Edgar game. So again, you feel like, hey, they must know something here.
Right.
And then Crandon, I know they played Merrill early in the season. Merrill beat them in a comeback. But
I think they played Tomahawk week 1 as well, if I'm not mistaken.
You're right. So they were challenged, but it was still a surprise. I thought Auburndale was going to win that game.
Oh, probably the biggest surprise to me, one of the biggest surprises when I looked at the scores on Friday night and Saturday morning. That was kind of the one that really stuck out. For me personally, as I reflect back on what we talked about on Wednesday, this one was probably a slam dunk in my mind in the other direction. I was like, ruh-roh.
And then Mondovi beat Abbotsford 41-6, and Abbotsford was a bit unlucky. And we talk about, again, seeding. It's not as though that if Mondovi was a 1 instead of a 2, because they lost to Regis on a Hail Mary pass, and you think, oh, well, but Abbotsford, I think they got banged up late.
Yeah.
They got off to a really good start. They got banged up. But even then, they were 6-3. I think of all the 6-3 teams in the lower divisions, I don't think any of them had a tougher seeding and then matchup than Abbotsford had. Irvin Aguilera, 11 rushes, 82 yards, 4 of 13 passing, 37 yards in the score for Abbey. But again, I think of all, you talk about maybe biggest upsets, I think the biggest, I don't know what you call it, but the shortest end of the stick went to the Abbotsford Falcons in level 1.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think we all, obviously the records show that, but Mondovi's a heck of a football program.
Yeah.
I mean, kind of like when we talked about Mount Horeb earlier, they're in that same ballpark. Very successful, very consistently level 2, 3, 4 football team in the playoffs. The thing that sticks out to me about Abbotsford is we know how capable they are of running the football. We know that how well they finished last season and entered the playoffs and had some competitiveness and success in that route. I think the thing that sticks out to me is the names seem to be missing from the stats.
Yeah.
So I think what you said about injuries probably really, really holds true. I think if we had Coach on, he'd probably talk to that. And I think probably some big ones early. Like I felt like their numbers overall, and they run the football. And when they played lesser opponents, they had the huge numbers. But there were sometimes that the numbers seemed lower than they were a year ago, and we knew they had most of those kids back. So I think that was an issue. I know the quarterback situation as well. So tough loss for them.
Yeah.
Great program.
Yeah, that's the thing as well.
Yeah.
They just consistently have been really good in recent years. And I think the red flag was when they had that Auburndale game. Because Auburndale had not been blowing people out. And to shut out Abbotsford, that was a bit of a surprise. I think it was just a team. There are certain teams that just get wore down physically because you know it. And the idea of next man up is really kind of a NFL thing, not really a high school thing.
And I think, too, probably also what kind of maybe gave us some false confidence in Auburndale as well, because probably not as big of a win for them as it probably looked like on paper.
Division 7, a couple of losses for Merriwood CWC teams. Hilbert beat Pittsville 35-8. Hilbert 8-2. Pittsville 4-6. Dawson Luther, who has so many big games running the football. You again see, I mean, it just shows, again, I think there is really a huge gap sometimes, generally, within everybody in the state of Wisconsin. When you face a good team, boy, it's like being thrown into a graduate course after just studying middle school math or something like that. But for Dawson Luther, it had some incredible rushing nights, 13 carries, negative 16 yards, and, of course, quarterback sacks count in that as well. But again, Pittsville loses, and Assumption, they fell to Cochran Fountain City 49-7. Cochran Fountain City 10-0. Assumption 3-7. Wiley Cornwell 15 rushes, 64 yards, 13 tackles, and a sack for Assumption. And I guess we'll just say that was it.
That is farewell to 11-man football.
They are off to 8-player. They'll be joining a conference with teams like Newman Catholic and Gilman and Owen Withy. The old Cloverwood almost getting back together in 8-player football next year. 8-player, and we talked last week about Athens football, and they really gave it a battle against top-seeded and undefeated Lena St. Thomas Aquinas. Lena defeated Athens 14-6. They are 10-0. Athens finishes 7-3. Evan Paseo, 23 rushes, 55 yards. Camden Zarnke, 10 of 21, 98 yards and a touchdown. Brock Beatty, 4 catches for 57 yards and a touchdown for Athens. The thing that kind of jumps out about it is that Paseo, 55 yards, but 23 carries. That means you still have the ball. You're still finding ways to keep control of the ball. It may not have been easy, but often it doesn't have to be massive numbers to keep you in a game. As long as you're able to do that, and I think that has a lot to do with a low-scoring game.
What I love about this score and the stats and everything about that is it sounds like they implemented Coach's game plan, right? When we talked last week about what he thought he needed to do to compete and win this game, he didn't talk about big plays or big offense or defense. He talked about mental toughness, possessing the ball, and it looks like they really came out and competed and did those things. So, I mean, end of a tough way to end it. I mean, but a great showing against a really good team and a season to be proud of for the Blue Jays.
And they only won 1 or 2 games last year, so a very big turnaround for Athens. Gilman defeats the defending state champs, Owen Withy, so there'll be a new state champion in 8-player football. Gilman 55-8, second time this year that Gilman has roughed up Owen Withy. McDonald, another team that I expect that will be very much in the mix for a state championship. They defeated Clayton by a score of 58-0, and Marion Tigerton, the final team from the CW8, the Newman Catholic Conference, and number 2 seed Marion Tigerton fell to number 3 seeded Sebastopol 50-16. Well, let's look ahead. There's not as many area teams to talk about here in level number 2, but and actually nobody in Division 1, nobody in Division 2. Hopefully that will change.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, real quickly, I mean, we've talked about this for a number of years. Paul Nowinski and myself talked about it for a number of years before that. It's still that process. It still continues. I do think we've seen it. I think Wausau West, and I mean, we've talked to you. Back a number of years ago, you said, you got to get those guys back in the weight room. Their team has got better at that. Yep. Everest has got better at that. So it shows the bar is really high in Division I football in Wisconsin, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I think one of the things we talked about at those times as well was we needed to get better to compete against the teams in the Fox Valley Association, and those teams are still rolling, right?
Yeah. Frankly, there's better teams too, because back in those days, Kaukauna was a little behind the 8 ball, but they've got better. I mean, there's other teams that are getting better too.
Right, and Nina's just continues to get better. Fond du Lac's back in there. Oshkosh North is tough again as well. But I think when you slide over to the West, I think one of the thought processes was, well, this gives us I don't know what the right
opportunity.
A little less competitive, probably. I mean, super programs,
right?
But probably comparatively not as super as those Fox Valley teams, whatever.
That's not a slam on them because
not
the Fox Valley is just so darn good,
right? And I think what we have found out over the first 2 years of this conference is that it's tough too. I think last year we were more competitive, so I think as a conference, I mean, I know they just had their all-conference meeting, but if they could get together and kind of game plan, I think they would all agree that they need to be better. Like, I think that we, as a conference, maybe took a slight step backwards, because last year we were talking about some really dynamic level 1 games, and Everest came out as a winner, and I mean, so there were some really nice efforts in there too. But this year, I mean, you look at Chippewa Falls kind of finished towards the bottom of that conference, and they came kind of roughed up everybody they played in.
And they almost beat Waunakee.
Yeah, on this side. So kind of tough matchup. But yeah, there's definitely some work to be done in Division One. Division One is tough. I mean, there's a lot of really good schools. The winner in D2 this year will probably come up there next year and make it even more of a challenge. So that, I mean, you truly are earning your way in. I mean, was there one team with a 4-5 record who made it into Division One, or weren't there any?
I don't know after double checking that, but nothing like we saw in the other divisions.
Yep. So yeah, I mean, no excuses. I mean, the teams in our area have to get better.
Division 3, Merrill at Grafton, and again, we heard from Coach Kramer. Again, the biggest thing here is the matchup. I mean, Merrill is having a terrific year, but hey, last year they were a huge underdog. Went to Onalaska, had a chance to win. As a team, you have to do what you can do, right? Execute.
And I think we talk about next steps. I mean, they won it. They got a home playoff game, which is huge. They won that home playoff game. So we say it's whatever. Maybe it's cliche, but we say it all the time. Next steps, right? So when you play a team like Grafton, of course you're going to do all the X's and O's. You're going to prepare to win. But if it goes the way Vegas would say it is, Grafton's probably has a good chance of winning this football game. But you go up against a team who, if you don't win on Friday night, you walk away saying, that's what we need to look like in order to take the next step. That's the level of physicality. That's the level of compete. That's the level of toughness we need to have in order to compete at that level.
Those are comments for after the game. I think Coach Wadzinski and the rest of that group is going to go to Grafton looking to win that football game.
Oh, absolutely. There's no question of that. Win, lose, or draw. It's a tough matchup. and if you're going to get to that,
it's a great opportunity.
If you're going to get to the opportunity to win the gold ball, you got to win these games, right?
Division 4, Mosinee, number 2 seed. Number 3 seed Evansville. Evansville 9-1. Mosinee 8-2. Know anything about Evansville?
I know nothing about Evansville other than at 9-1. They're probably a pretty darn good football team. Great for Mosinee to have another home game. That should be a great environment down the road a little bit on Friday night, but should be a good game. And I think Coach Kramer touched on this. We've hit it a little bit all season. I mean, Mosinee goes the way of Treve Stoffel. And last week he was electric. I don't know much about Turner as far as what sort of defense they put up or whatever. But
and as a team, Mosinee's been really playing well. I mean, their 2 losses came in the first 4 weeks. They haven't lost since.
Yeah, one of those losses was to a really good football team, right? In
Menasha.
In Menasha.
Yep.
So I think the one thing we've seen that's helped them down the stretch is we've seen some other names, right? I mean, Treve had a huge game the other night, but he had a lot of passing yards.
Got a nice target in that Mitchell Mickley.
Yep, and they're catching the ball and doing that. The challenge comes, we talked about it in Abbotsford, we talked about in some of these other ones, you have to be able to do multiple things in multiple different ways. So if a team finds a way to shut Treve down, that's where the challenge is going to lie for Mosinee.
Division 5, number of teams still involved in the postseason. You got a game that I think, again, we talked about earlier, maybe being one of the most intriguing matchups. You got Spencer Columbus from the CWC Large at 6-4, and then the Tomahawk Hatchets from the GNC at 9-1. And I got to say, I kind of like Spencer. Right. They've been so consistently good, giving themselves a chance to win. This will be, I think, as big a challenge. Tomahawk did play a CWC Large team in Whitburn early in the season, the overtime game. So I think this is going to be a great football game.
Yeah, I think Spencer Columbus could certainly make the argument that they're more battle-tested, right? Played against probably some more top-level opponents. Tomahawk, the thing I would say for them is they've played and beaten, other than the one close game to Mosinee, everyone who's been there, right? Including a Wittenberg-Burnhamwood team, but everyone who's come down the pipe. They've found a way to win, and they haven't all been blowouts, and they haven't all been pretty. I think playing at Tomahawk certainly is an advantage for them in this one, but this should be a great game.
Stratford, winners of 8 games in a row. Prairie du Chien is 7-3. And like Mosinee, Stratford seems to have been better and better and better as the season's gone on.
Yeah, I wish I knew more. right? I know early on I heard some rumblings about how the sky was falling a little bit in Stratford as they weren't going to have an undefeated state championship and all the things, even though they didn't last year. Edgar beat them as well. But I do think that they are rolling right now, but to be determined and how far they're going to roll, because it is different. I mean, coach had a huge challenge, new coach, whatever, but he didn't inherit the team that won 3 state championships in a row. He's kind of had to, they do reload a little bit to some extent, like Stratford and Edgar and those really good programs do. But at the same time, those kids had to develop their own identity and learn how to win as this year's group.
And so often it does come down to, again, the teams that, because I don't know what Prairie du Chien has done. I know they're 7-3, and so often we see teams that come in where it's like, how good are they? We don't know. And that has, the thing is, Stratford and the other teams that play these teams from outside their areas, they will know. They will know it's a big challenge. But they played last year, in fact, and I thought so. I went back and looked, and I'm thinking Prairie du Chien was the team, and Stratford somehow pulled it out in the state semifinal 26-25.
Yep.
So they know that this is going to be a great challenge.
Yep.
That was one of the greatest games of last season because Stratford won it right at the very end.
Yep. And like you said, I think so much in a season, pick the sport, pick the level, has to do with how you're playing at what time of the season. And I think the one thing we can say is that Stratford does appear to be playing their best football right now.
2 other teams in Division 5 in the CWC Large. Amherst at home against Brillion. Amherst 9-1, Brillion 8-2. And Wittenberg-Burnhamwood will try to do it again on the road, 5-5, but they travel to number 1 seed Lake Country Lutheran, who's 9-1.
Well, I do know some things about Lake Country Lutheran, not necessarily this year, but traditionally an outstanding football program. So obviously a big challenge for Wittenberg laying out there, but who knows? They surprised us last week. And I think a little bit like we talked about Stratford, I think Amherst is in a very similar boat, right? We're not 100% sure at this point who we're talking about here. Like have not performed to what the level we thought they were based on some really early season success. Maybe things are coming together for them as well as far as injuries, getting healthy, that sort of thing.
It did. I think that game at Whitburn in Week 9 was one that said, okay, maybe they did learn something from that Stratford game. And then Division 6, you got Edgar 10-0 against Poynette 8-2. And again, Edgar, I wonder how they took that game last week. In terms of, is it just, hey, we won the game, we move on, or does, where did it kind of go sideways against a 4-5 team?
Well, I think for sure that second thing, but I would add on to that. I would doubt that there's panic with Coach Sins, and you certainly didn't imply that. But but I think they definitely probably maybe watched a little more of past Friday night's film than they. Usually it's mop up in the first round, move on to your next opponent, don't have to spend much time on reviewing what you did in level 1. And I think they probably did spend a little time to figure out how they gave up 14 points against the Loyal Greenwood team.
And then finally, Wyowega Fremont 6-4 at Manitowoc Lutheran, who's 10-0. But I am learning not to doubt any team from the CWC Large.
Yeah, kind of some inconsistencies during the year, but postseason success.
Well, we got about 45 seconds to go. What's the game that you're going to be watching the closest?
Gosh, there's a bunch of them. I'm really interested to see how Mosinee stacks up, because I think Evansville has the potential to be a really nice team. And I think, kind of like you said, the Tomahawk Spencer Columbus game I think is intriguing. Tomahawk has not let me down yet. I kind of have high expectations for them based on how they've played this year and how they've won the games, the close ones, the blowouts, all those things. So looking to see if they can keep it rolling.
We'll talk about it next week.
Can't wait.
That's Jason Foster. I'm Chad Holmes. Thanks to Tyler Kramer, the Wausau East head football coach, and Camille Sobolewski from Newman Catholic. We'll be back next week right here on 98.9 WXCO.